Funding for Election 2016 coverage is made possible by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to helping people turn their goals and dreams into real possibilities and changing the way America defines aging. And by the members of Prairie Public.
Welcome to Prairie Public and AARP's coverage of the 2016 election. I'm Dave Thompson. We're going to meet the candidates for governor. And good evening. Thank you for joining us. Our guest tonight, Democrat Marvin Nelson, Libertarian Marty Riske, Republican Doug Burgum. Thank you all for being here. And our opening statement comes first from Marty Riske.
Hello, I'm from Grafton, North Dakota originally, and my dad Henry sold John Deere implements in Grafton, and my mom worked at the Walsh County Record most of her life. They were hardworking people. My dad remembered the Depression, and he was a strong saver. And my mom had strong intuition. When my little sister was born and I was 2 years old, she saw the furrows in my brow when she was breastfeeding my sister, and she invited me up on her lap at the same time. And she tells me it gave me great comfort, and I thank her for that. I have two exciting ideas for North Dakota. One is a way to balance the budget and cut spending of North Dakota to meet the income so that families don't have to be taxed more. And I also have exciting opportunities in agriculture that I look forward to sharing with you. Thank you.
Our second candidate to talk will be Republican Doug Burgum.
Thanks, Dave. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to be on the ballot representing the Republican Party in the governor's race on November 8th. I grew up in Arthur, North Dakota, a town of 352 people on the west edge of the Red River Valley. My dad ran the grain elevator business there and had a great life growing up, understanding all things about hard work and agriculture and perseverance with caring teachers and good coaches and loving parents. When I was a freshman in high school, my dad passed away after a 2-year battle with cancer, and I got a chance to learn some more important lessons as I saw my mom return to the workforce and as a single mother and raise 3 kids. After going to North Dakota State in graduate school, I discovered the power of personal computers and software, and literally bet the farm, 160 acres that I'd received from my dad, to provide the seed capital for a startup software company here in North Dakota. We grew that from 10 people in 1983 to over 2,000 people in 2001 when we were acquired by Microsoft. And I've seen what North Dakota kids can do. We hired kids from 220 different towns across North Dakota.
It's a minute.
And I'm excited about what we can do in North Dakota going forward.
Okay, thank you. And now our Democratic candidate, Marvin Nelson.
Thank you, Dave. We face a difficult time in North Dakota. Our income has dropped precipitously as a state. We went from $12 billion of tax money in the general fund and the oil tax to $7, a $5 billion drop. We have to make adjustments, and we have to do them properly. We have to continue serving the poor, the elderly, the people who cannot take care of themselves. At the same time, we don't want to make the mistake of the 80s again, where we shove all the responsibility and the funding back to the local property tax. We need to have the state step up and take care of the state responsibilities. We need daycare for children across the state so people can afford to work, and it needs to be quality, safe daycare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all three of you. Let's start with the questioning. We start with Doug Burgum. And everybody's talked a little bit about the budget. And of course, North Dakota is facing some challenges in its budget. For Doug Burgum, what would you do differently if you had been governor?
Well, I think it's, I haven't been governor. Coming in as an outsider, as a business leader, running for governor, to discuss what I would have done differently then. I'd rather talk about what we do going forward. And I think going forward, it's important that we make sure that we match our spending with our revenues. As Marvin said, we've had a precipitous drop in revenue coming in, and we have to reduce the amount of spending that the state is doing. And at the same time we're doing that, I think we have to get better at forecasting. We have to do a better job of risk management in managing our revenues. And we do have to do a better job of making sure that we fund our priorities, and we would do that through zero-based budgeting, focusing on where's the first dollar go, not just the last dollar, to make sure that the limited resources we have are going to the important priorities the state's facing.
Okay, Marvin Nelson, same question to you. What would you have done differently, or what would you do differently as governor?
I think a major difference is a governor should also listen to the people. We have 5 ballot measures coming up this time, and whatever the people decide, that's the law of the land. The people a few years ago voted not to cut income tax, and yet the leaders of the majority party continually cut income tax. The people instituted an oil tax, and then the majority party put in a trigger, and then as an excuse to get rid of the trigger, they cut that tax. We need the leadership of this state to be willing to listen to the people of this state.
To Marty Riskey, then, what would you do differently?
One of my cornerstones in my candidacy is to initiate the tradition of an independent audit of state government that rolls through state government on an occasional basis. So, for example, every 5 years or every year in some cases. This is how we identify how to cut the budget precisely instead of doing the ruinous across-the-board cuts that we've been doing. An across-the-board cut is a reactionary thing, whereas precise cutting requires thought. And the second thing that we need to do is we need to look at the duplication in higher education. One of the first areas, I'm coming out with a study on that tomorrow, and one of the things that we're going to be recommending is looking at UND and NDSU. This is just one example out of many, and looking at the 2 engineering departments.
Okay, I want to follow up on that because Doug Burgum talked about zero-based budgeting. Could I infer from that that you do not believe in the idea of cost to continue?
Well, I think that the cost to continue, or this concept of if we've done funding in the past, there is funding that is required to keep that funding going. And one of the things that I think then is a fallacy is for us to talk about one-time spending, because it doesn't matter what it is. If you build a building on a university, you've got to heat it, you got to staff it, you got to provide janitorial services, you got to plow the snow in front of it, and so there isn't such a thing as a one-time spending, any more than there's free puppies or you buy a house and it's a one-time spending. So I think we have to look carefully at really reducing our one-time spending to make sure that we're also appropriately considering all the cost that the bow wave of expense that goes forward after that one-time expense.
I'd like to get Marvin Nelson's reaction to that. Should there be a zero-based budget?
I think it's a good way to do a budget. Every different way you do has its advantages and its disadvantages, and that certainly for what we would call the continuing spending is a good way. The one-time spending, we build a building this time, I don't think it really needs to show up as being in the budget the next time, but that is an appropriate way and would be fine as a way to do budget. And
to Marty Riskey.
I think eventually we're going to be looking at vacating some buildings because we don't want those ongoing expenses. So the independent audit would also reveal what that would amount to. Could we consolidate real estate?
Okay. One more go at budget, because I'm very interested in this, because there's been a lot of complaint from legislators, especially on the Republican side, about our forecasting. So again, to Doug, you mentioned that there has to be better forecasts.
Yeah, and forecasting is a challenging thing when we're so dependent on commodity prices, and we're a state where much of our tax revenue is driven either by the agricultural sector or the energy sector, and both of those have commodity prices we can't control. But just like any business that's in the commodity business, like my family, the grain elevator business that's still fourth generation run by a family member, we're hedging every night. If we buy grain from a farmer, we hedge it that night. We don't take risk on those revenues even for 24 hours. And I think in the same way, the state owns a lot of mineral acres. The state drives a lot of revenue directly from oil production and not just oil taxes, but direct oil revenue. And we need to be thinking about, how do we do a better job of risk management? And on the forecasting side, there are new methodologies. Some of them have fancy names, Monte Carlo simulations, but we could give the legislature a range of forecasts versus a single number. I think it's dangerous with commodities to offer just a single number.
Okay, Marvin, what is your thought about the forecasting in state government?
Well, the forecasting really is an impossibility now when we are so dependent on the commodities and stuff. The disappointment in the model was really there seemed to not be a strong enough relationship between the commodity prices and income tax and sales tax and stuff. But realize that there's no place we can go out on the market and just pick up a model of the North Dakota economy to use. So we keep what we got, we keep tweaking it, and it's always going to be somewhat frustrating, but it's the best we have.
And to Marty Riskey.
And we've had discussions about bringing forecasting within our state government and possibly even becoming good enough to do forecasting for other states that are agricultural, have the same problems that we have, the commodity-based economies. It's sort of unique to the rest of the United States. And also, I think to take off on Doug's idea, I think it would be helpful too to know if we could get farmers and oil producers to tell us how much hedging is going on in the industry so that we could take comfort from that.
Okay. I'm going to move on to another subject. It's been in the news quite a bit over the last 2 months at least, and that's the Dakota Access Pipeline. I'd like to start with Marvin Nelson. How do you feel the governor has handled this? How do you feel law enforcement has handled this? What would you do differently with the Dakota Access Pipeline?
Well, many of the basic problems came not from the governor's office, but from a process of citing it that really wasn't very well done and really probably shows that we need to change the Public Service Commission. At the point it gets to the governor's office, we're basically talking security, but I've been really disappointed that there hasn't been a serious effort to try to get the different people in to talk to each other, because everything's just done through innuendo and through the news media and stuff, and that's just a way it creates, people are scared, people are hated of each other. It's like they're working with each other as stereotypes, instead of actually sitting down and becoming humans to each other and talking face to face and see. No one's actually seen if there's a solution to this that would be mutually acceptable.
I'll ask the same question of Marty Riskey as well.
My hindsight 2020 is if I were governor and this happened again, I would get the negotiation table down to the site as quickly as I possibly could before national influences come in. President Obama did a troublesome thing when he came behind the federal judge and broke the rule of law and said that no, it's not going to proceed anyway. That he really sort of took the ball into his hands and kind of took that away from us, because if we do negotiate a good deal, will he come in and turn that around against us again? We rely on diesel all the way from the farm to the shelves in the grocery store and gasoline going to the store to get that loaf of bread. And so we absolutely need to have this until solar is powerful enough or some other energy. Secondly, this is having a huge effect on our employee benefits pension fund, on 401ks, savings of people in IRAs and so forth, because pipelines are an important part of investments when it comes to retirement, because it's reliable dividend income. And now with the disruption of this pipeline, that all comes into question. It's having a lot of pressure on that segment of the investment arena. So I think we need to move forward with this project, and I think we need to make a deal with the natives that we will address some of their concerns in other waterways and improve something that's 50 years old and under the water that they're concerned with.
And to Doug Burgum.
Well, I agree with Marvin that there's a big opportunity for enhanced dialogue here, particularly among the people that are citizens of North Dakota. But you know, the reality where we find ourselves today is that this has become a focal point, but this is a federal, national, international political battle that's going on that's gotten much larger than the original issues about pipeline sightings. And again, as Marty was saying, the federal government, the overreach here has been extreme. And then now we're in a spot where, again, there was a ruling this morning that ruled in favor of the pipeline to be able to proceed with construction. But we've got, Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Justice, Department of Interior, all these federal agencies that are acting politically to stop infrastructure in America. And I think whether it's energy security, whether it's jobs in North Dakota, whether it's union jobs, the union jobs that are building this, we have to be a country that can create jobs and build infrastructure. We also have to be a country where we can listen to each other, understand, and have a dialogue. And I think there's a solution set out there, but there's not a solution set out there if the federal government is going to be trying to meddle in affairs that we should be able to handle here at a state level.
To follow up, and I'll start again with Marvin Nelson, does the Standing Rock Sioux have a point?
They certainly do. The pipeline's going through their water, and as far as I can tell, they never really were consulted about their water. There was an effort to consult them about the heritage sites, but never about their water. They do have a point.
I agree, and however, I did go to Standing Rock, to Cannonball, and I did talk to a few people down there, and I did meet a real bright fella whose brother is in the pipeline business, so he knew quite a bit about it. And he conceded that the new pipes are far better than the old pipes in that they're extruded, they're not welded anymore, better alloys and so forth. And so he had a lot more confidence in the newer pipe. And that's what leads me to think that we could make a deal with them to actually improve our infrastructure elsewhere and satisfy them.
And then to Doug Burgum.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They have a point. And as all citizens do, they have an opportunity to have a voice in the due process that's gone on, whether it's about clean water or siting. But understand the siting that was approved through a thorough and lengthy process includes going right next to a 1982 pipeline that already exists in this site. So we already have that. So again, I think that this is an opportunity for further dialogue. Earlier in the campaign, I had a chance to go down to Standing Rock. I met with the leadership there. Last week, I had a phone call and spoke with Chairman Archambault. I think listening and understanding what the concerns are is an important part of what we have to do going forward. But again, this isn't going to get resolved without the federal government taking a different position. And I think, again, this is where it's not just about the governor, it's about our federal delegation and the federal government itself all the way up to the White House on whether they're going to politicize this or whether they're going to allow the rule of law to proceed.
Now to switch gears again, I would like to get into the issue of property taxes. Property taxes is not something that the state itself levies, but there's state involvement in trying to lower property taxes. To Marty Riskey, is this sustainable?
That's a great question. That's something that we're looking at closely as part of what's going to happen for North Dakota in terms of where our biggest opportunities are. We compared the North Dakota economy to South Dakota's economy, and South Dakota is different in two important ways. One is they do not have an oil industry, and the second thing is they do not have income tax. Their annual outlays this year are $1.9 billion and ours are over $4 billion. So we're quite a ways away from where they are at. And the two big identifiers were money flowing to the state and back to the cities, and the other, which was huge. That was about $2.2 billion a year. And the other, and about 30% of that is infrastructure for the oil thing. So the rest of it is to the rest of the cities. And the other big area of opportunity was about $500 million in higher education. So I think that we need to, it doesn't seem right to be sending money to this place and then have it sent by them to this place, because then you add administrative fees and all of those things handling this money. So we need to look at where the money is most efficient and where it's going.
Okay, Doug Burgum, please.
Well, I agree with Marty. I mean, the best decisions that are made are often made locally, and keeping local decisions local is a way to make sure that people have a voice in their government. And it's one of the reasons why I chose Mayor Brent Sanford from Watford City as my running mate, to get someone who's been on the front lines, understands property taxes, understands the impacts on a community. And I know from having an opportunity to campaign across every county. I've been to every county seat. I've been to every town in North Dakota, over 1,000, a lot of them smaller than that. Property taxes is different everywhere in the state. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all in Bismarck that works across our whole state.
And to Marvin Nelson.
Yeah, when people pledge no tax on the state level, what they're really telling you is that property taxes have to pick up the difference, any shortage, anything that goes on. That's a really big difference. I remember in the 70s and 80s how just time after time it got shoved on the local level, because people said, oh, we won't raise taxes. When you have a responsibility, you have to pay for it. And the question is, how are you going to pay for it? Are you going to pay for it this way, or are you going to pay for it that way? And when people, I've seen it in the legislature where people say, oh, there, we did our job. We didn't raise any taxes. And then the local people had to raise the taxes time after time after time. Is it sustainable? I don't know with the present legislature that we have that it is. I suspect that it actually isn't under the current circumstances, but it should be. The state should be picking up social services. This should not vary. You shouldn't get different services or be charged a different amount for social services based on where you live in the state. But that's the situation today. We need to pick up those responsibilities just like we used to. And we could if we made a commitment to do that.
Okay. This question comes from our co-sponsor, AARP. An NDSU study showed roughly 80% of family caregivers are providing nursing or health care tasks, and almost 50% of them do it without any instruction or training. What will you do to provide more resources and training for caregivers in North Dakota? And would you support laws that call for hospitals to recognize and instruct family caregivers that their loved ones are hospitalized? And we'll start with Doug Burgum.
Well, the topic that you bring up is a very important one, and it fits in this broad bucket of home health care. The most expensive way that we can take care of an aging population is to institutionalize them in long-term care, facilities. And the most effective way, if they can be safe and well cared for, and where most of us that have cared for aging parents in our lives know that they would rather be at home. And so, but then when it comes, if they're at home, then what are the methodologies, the tools and the training, the technologies that come to play to make sure they're safe, make sure they're well cared for? The good news is, in a world of technological change, there is hundreds of new ideas in the whole field of home health care that would allow us to have people stay in their homes longer but still be well cared for. And I agree that there's things that we can do to train family members to take care of family members. The best care will always come from someone that loves the people they're caring for.
To Marvin Nelson, the same question.
Well, it seems strange that you'd need to pass a law, but we clearly are having people who are providing care who haven't been shown how to provide that care, and we have people going back into the hospital on account of that. So we do need to make sure that people are being properly coached before they go home. And then in the whole thing, this is one of the frustrations in government, because these caregivers save the state money. Yet when we come with a bill in the legislature to fund this, it looks like it costs the state money. So we have things now like the state cut housekeeping services 50%. This is going to cost us more than we're ever going to save with housekeeping services. And these caregiver ones are the ones where we really need to know that we are willing to fund them, because it's going to save the state money even when the fiscal note looks like you're spending money. We have to do these things if we're going to stay within budget. We have to actually spend money to stay within budget.
And to Marty Riskey, the same question.
And this again brings to mind the importance of auditing our state activities so that we do not cut back on services to the vulnerable and the elderly. When we do these across-the-board cuts, then the human services element gets cut right along with everybody else, and that is something that I am vehemently against. I want to look at state government and find the money elsewhere in the areas that are not as critical, will not hurt people as much, and bring that to bear on exactly those services. And I see a vastly expanded role for social services and CNAs.
And at this point, we have come to the end of the debate, so each candidate will get 1 minute summation. And we start with Marvin Nelson.
Well, I thank you for watching this and following us in the campaign. You have a very difficult decision as the people of North Dakota, because we are in such an important, critical time moving forward where we have to make some major changes. I've spent a lifetime being involved in policy, following these issues, learning about the state government of North Dakota. Carson Wentz is doing a great job as the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, but he didn't show up and have his first time on the football field being the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. He spent years of practice and learning the game. I've spent those years of practice, and we need someone who knows what's going on in the state government today. We can't afford not to.
Now to Marty Riskey.
Thank you. The thing that I'm concerned about most here, I guess, is the lower income levels for North Dakota going forward, and the others influences that are coming to bear that we're not paying attention to. For example, the state pension employment fund. With the zero interest rate policy of the Fed, our income on bonds is going down, and that's a significant component of the funds. Also, I'm concerned about young farmers who will be going out of business this year because the commodity prices are so low. At the same time, we have a record number of farmers who are going to be entering retirement age. Who is going to take that over? We need to develop programs, and I'll be releasing those soon. Starting tomorrow and the next couple of weeks, I'll be coming up with specific proposals to put more income into the hands of young farmers. We need to diversify our most important segment of our economy, the agricultural economy.
And Doug Burgum.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thanks, Prairie Public, and thanks to the AARP for hosting this debate. I want to just say again, this is an important election. I've been making payroll every 2 weeks since I was 26 years old, and have had the opportunity of creating thousands of great jobs in the state. And I know that that's part of what we need to do. We've got to diversify our economy to move away from just pure commodity-based sources. We have to add value to our energy products, add value to our ag products, diversify into technology. All the work that's being done with the UAV, unmanned air vehicles at UND and NDSU, there's lots of opportunities for us to really embrace the future and the world of abundance that's ahead of us. And I just again want to say I'm grateful for the thousands of supporters that we've had across the state that believe in our message of diversifying the economy, of balancing the budget without raising taxes, and revitalizing our main streets so that we can retain our kids and our grandkids here in North Dakota to keep North Dakota the exceptional place that it is.
And I'd like to thank our three candidates for governor: Republican Doug Burgum, Democrat Marvin Nelson, and Libertarian Marty Riskey.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm Dave Thompson for AARP and Prairie Public. Thanks for tuning in.
Funding for Election 2016 coverage is made possible by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to helping people turn their goals and dreams into real possibilities and changing the way America defines aging. And by the members of Prairie Public.